Welcome back to TechNet Radio. In today's Community Corner, John Weston interviews Ryan Adams from the North Texas SQL Server user group. Listen in as they chat about the importance of social media, learning opportunities at SQL Saturdays and SQL Rally events, as well as what some of the benefits are to upgrading to the latest version of SQL Server. John, the mic is yours.
Hello and welcome to today's TechNet Radio Community Corner. And actually, I wouldn't even really call this radio. Today we're using webcams, and I have Ryan Adams with me from North Texas SQL Server Group. And as you can see on the screen, both Ryan and I have our webcam set up. Ryan's in his home in Texas. I'm in my home in Denton, Texas. We're about 50 miles away from each other, and we're recording this all the way up in Seattle. So welcome to the show today, Ryan.
Thanks, John.
So to get off started in our community questions, or can we kind of start off talking about how you interact with the community? First, I want to know a little bit about your background and what do you do for a day job?
I've worked for kind of rare, but I've actually worked for a Fortune 100 company for almost 13 years. So I've worn a lot of different hats in that time. Everything from desktop and server and Active Directory for years and years. Most of what I do now is automation with Active Directory. So we do a lot of stuff with Forefront Identity Manager, and we have some custom tools that we use. For the most part, my primary objectives from day to day is to handle all the databases on the back end of all that stuff.
That's cool. So you're definitely, would you consider yourself a DBA? Have you been a database guy for years?
Yes. Yeah, I started with SQL in SQL 2000.
Okay, great. So I know you're very active in the local SQL Server user group. I think it's called North Texas SQL Server Group. Tell us about that group.
Yeah, the North Texas SQL Server groups. Yes, I mean, our general objective is just provide a forum where developers and DBAs can kind of come together. We can share ideas and we can learn about the product. And we meet out there at the Microsoft campus there in Texas. We meet the third Thursday of every month. And we just have a great time. We provide, pizza and drinks for everybody, and we get together, and we usually have a presentation. We do kind of proud of some of the presentations we've had with some really high-profile people come out and speak to the user group. We've got 3 MVPs in the group, one of which does a special class in addition to the normal regular presentation that we do. So every time he does a class, our attendance is just skyrockets. So it's been really good having him do that. And our group's really involved in a lot of different things in the community. We've had a SQL Saturday coming up in April, and that will be our 3rd SQL Saturday in a year.
Wow.
So that keeps us very, very busy. And then this year we've done a lot of really cool stuff with the SQL Saturday we're excited about. We've got some pre-cons with the SQL Saturday that are going to be really cool. Some fantastic speakers like Kevin Klein and some of these guys that are really high profile. So for $75, you can't beat an entire day of training for $75 and then followed up by a SQL Saturday, which of course is completely free.
That's great. So what's your role within the group? Are you president or what's your role within the community?
I'm on the board of directors for the group. My title is logistics and communications, so I do a lot of our social media. So we've got our group out on LinkedIn. We've got a Twitter account. So I handle all that stuff, our email distribution list, our website, which is northtexas.sqlpass.org. So that's kind of my main role, is just handling all the communications and logistics for the meetings and things like that.
That's great. I mean, that's a unique role. I mean, obviously, I've worked with a lot of user groups that have a board, but you're the first, I think, that's been in charge of specifically logistics and communication. That sounds like an important role to the health of your user group there. So why do you? Obviously, this takes a lot of your personal time. Why do you invest so much time in community?
For me, it's really just about the people. You start coming to these meetings and you start talking to these people and you realize how passionate they really are about their careers and the product. Like I say, I've been around my company for so long and have done so many different things that there really are no groups dedicated to things like Active Directory or server-specific related things. And that was probably my biggest draw when I first found the group was, wow, there's a group that is actually centered around this particular product. It was just really exciting to be able to get in there and meet these people, talk about different ideas. There's always 5 different ways you can get to a particular end goal, and to see the really genius way that some people figure out solutions, and just the opportunity to be able to share how I've come across things. I've worked for a very large company for a long time, and being able to share my experiences with how I've been able to solve some of these problems in a large enterprise, it's fantastic. It's great.
That's great. So what makes people want to come to your meetings? Is it just the speaker or just the content? Why do you think they come together and you make your meetings so popular?
Free food and swag.
It's all about the pizza, right?
No, yeah, it's really about free training. We want to educate other people. We really want to further product. We obviously, each of us in our own companies have a vested interest in the product. So we really, it's really about the quality content. We kind of pride ourselves on some of the content that we're able to deliver with some of the guys in our group. You see, we've got some MVPs, some things like that. They're just really high-end guys that just bring a whole nother level of quality in the type of information that you can get completely free. A prime example, our meeting this month here in March. For some of the guys that are not SQL, in the SQL community as much, if you are, you'll know the names Paul Randall and Kimberly Tripp. If you know anything about SQL and the DBCC commands, Paul Randall wrote all of that. They'll be here this month speaking, and that's just that's an amazing opportunity to be able to get that for free.
Yeah, that's cool. I've heard both of them speak before, and they're great speakers, and it's quite a resource to have them locally here. That's cool. So you mentioned earlier that you're the kind of the logistics and communications for your group. What kind of things specifically do you do to market your group?
It's trickier than you think it would be. It's really hard to get yourself out there. It's really hard to make yourself known, and there are a lot of challenges. I mean, some of the easier things that we do when we've got a group on LinkedIn, so all of our meetings are out there. Our website. Any type of information that we can get out through Twitter, whether that's other local events that are happening, things that we're doing, just good technical information to know, those kind of things. So social media is probably one of our bigger things. Of course, we have an email distribution list you can sign up for. Those are probably our biggest things. And, of course, our events, the SQL Saturdays that we've been hosting, and some of those things. But there's challenges too. I mean, as much as we get out there on the web and handle these social medias to kind of promote ourselves, word of mouth goes a long way. Yep. It's really hard to, how do you find, this particularly large company, how do I find out what their DBA groups are? It's hard for me to find them even within my company. It's just so big, and to be able to get that information out there, sometimes that's a little difficult. So those are some of the challenges that I'm faced with, is how do you get into the companies themselves. Gotcha. And be able to spread that around.
Have you guys, I know you're a past member, have you used things like Community Megaphone or anything like that?
Yes, we do use Community Megaphone, so we put our stuff out there so we can get in the MSDN email newsletter and the TechNet newsletter, so we do That's one great. Of the 5 things I do for every meeting every month is make sure we're out on Community Megaphone.
That's good. So how many members all up would you say, and what do you think typically come to an average meeting?
So membership, that's another thing that's really hard to gauge in a user group. One of the best ways that we gauge it is we consider anybody that signs up for our email list, we consider to be a member. Yep. We've gone through some changes. Our old email list, we had about 700 people on. We've recently had to, in the last few months, switch over to a new email list. We're using Google Groups now. So far, we've had 362 come over off the old group, and it's growing all the time. So I'm sure it'll be back up to that 700 in no time. Our meetings, we probably average about 70 people. It varies from month to month. Depends on the weather, depends on people's schedules and things like that. But, yeah, we average about 70 people.
That's cool. So how has your career, or obviously you've worked at a large company for a while, or you benefited from your involvement in the group? What do you think you've gained out of being a member and investing time in the community?
Without question, it'd have to just be technical education. Just the range of topics being involved in the group, you get to see other perspectives and other things that are SQL related that you don't necessarily deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it really allows, for me, it's not only taken the topics and the range and made it a larger range, but it's also deeper knowledge of those things that you already know as well. And so that's really benefited my career to have that knowledge and be able to add things on, especially for me because I'm the only DBA in the group, so it's kind of a one-stop shop. So, you know, a lot of DBAs have a particular focus, you know, whether it's business intelligence, maybe it's reporting services, some of those things, whereas for me, I kind of have my hands in a little bit of everything.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've definitely upped your technical bag, I guess, of being able to handle more situations by the time you've invested in the community. That's cool. Where do you see community going? I mean, I know in technology it's hard to predict out 3 or 5 years, but where do you see the community, specifically the SQL Server community, going in the next few years?
Man, the SQL community is really, in the last just couple of years, has really ramped up, and SQL Saturday pushed a lot of that. And it's an amazing community to get out there and meet some of these people. As far as where it goes in 3 to 5 years, I know where I'd like to see it is when people in the community and different companies and stuff and DBAs, they start talking about SQL. We want North Texas SQL Server Group to be the first thing that comes to their minds. Hey, you want good information, you want a good place to go to be able to network and meet other people. This is your first stop. We want to be that cornerstone in the SQL community that says, hey, these guys are the guys that are pioneering things, that are leading things. And one of the things that we've done to kind of help that recently is the community, SQL Pass we talked about is kind of our, we're a sub-chapter of the overall SQL Pass community. And they have they have a large conference every year, generally up in Seattle. But one of the things they've tried to do in order to reach out and get to the local communities, other than just the chapters themselves, is they've launched something called SQL Rally. SQL Rally is kind of a cross between SQL Saturday, which is a free one-day training event, whereas the Pass, their main event is a week long, thousands of dollars to go, you got to travel. So they've tried to find something in the middle, which is a SQL Rally, which is 3 days, and it's usually $200 to $300. I think our very first one is in Florida, coming up here in the next couple of months. And so one of the things that we've done is we've actually petitioned to get SQL Rally here in Dallas.
Oh, that's great.
And that'll be a wonderful thing if we're able to get that here.
Yeah. I mean, going to like a TechNet or a SQL or a Pass Summit, I mean, those are expensive week-long investments, and if you can get more of that local cheaper, that's even better.
Yes, yeah. So that's what we're shooting for. So we're hoping that we're trying to blaze the way for that. So hopefully we can get that here.
Well, as we always do here on Community Corner on TechNet Radio, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes just at least talking technical questions, not just 100% community. And obviously being a SQL DBA here, got to ask you about SQL Server. So what would you say is your favorite feature? What's the latest version? SQL Server 2008 R2. I love the way our marketing team comes up with these product names. But what would you say is your favorite feature of the latest version?
Of the latest version, I've probably got 2 favorite features. One is policy-based management. The reason that one strikes a chord with me more than anything is because my past role is Active Directory. With Active Directory, anybody that's familiar with that knows a lot about group policies and the power that they bring in managing your environment. And policy-based management brings that to the SQL world. So that now that, if you're a DBA and you've got hundreds of servers, maybe you've got hundreds of databases on a server, now you've got a central way to manage those a little bit easier and kind of enforce some of those policies. So, one of the big ones that we always like to say is don't start a stored procedure with SP underscore, because that's how the stored procedures are named by default in the system, and you can't differentiate yours from the ones that came from Microsoft.
Yep. With
policy-based management, we can actually do things like enforce those naming conventions. So we can say, hey, if you create a new policy, it has to start with USP underscore.
Oh, that's great.
That's probably one of the biggest things for me is to be able to, make sure auto shrink is turned off. And one of the other cool ones they came out with was compression. Compression has been fantastic, and particularly with R2, from a money perspective, with SQL 2008, you had to have Enterprise Edition in order to take advantage of compression. But in R2, they actually put that in the standard version. So that was a huge cost savings for a lot of the medium-sized businesses to take advantage of that.
Necessarily go to that enterprise version to get that feature. That's great. So obviously there are a lot of people on older versions of SQL Server. I'm sure you've come from many, many different upgrades. But what would you say would be the biggest benefit if somebody's thinking about upgrading? Should they wait? Should they go ahead and upgrade to the R2 version now?
Well, there's definitely no reason to wait.
Okay.
I don't know that I would necessarily, the only reason I would say to go from 2008 to 2008 R2, money-wise, would probably just be the savings in compression, because you can go with standard edition and you can save some money that way. I don't know that there's a whole lot of advantage between 2008 and R2 money-wise, unless you're in the business intelligence field. There's a lot of stuff in the business intelligence side. A lot of enhancements and new features they added there. So if you're on the BI side, you might want to take a look at some of those features and find out whether it's worthwhile. If you're on 2000 and 2005, I would say coming from 2000 to 2005, mirroring would be a big one.
Yep.
And there was a lot of updates even in mirroring between 05 and 08. There were huge advantages. That would definitely be reasons for me, if I'm using mirroring, to make the jump.
Gotcha. Well, always when I have experts on, technical experts, I have to ask this next question, because it even surprises me that what people come up with. I learn stuff from these calls every day. So what would you say is the most surprising feature about SQL Server that people just don't know about?
Wow, that they don't actually know about. Other than the policy-based management and compression that we talked about.
Yeah, those
those are probably the biggest ones. Policy-based management is probably one of the things that is not advertised as much as it probably should be. It just tends to get overlooked more than I think it ought to be. I think it's got a whole lot of power. Central Management Server would probably be another one. That's a really handy feature if you've got a lot of DBAs in a group and a lot of databases, and you're going to SQL Server Management Studio every day. Man, I've got to add all these servers. And then if my laptop goes down or I have another system, I got to add all those connections back again. Now I can put those on a central server. I can connect to that central server. Boom, all my connections are there. A lot of people don't really make good use of that one, and that's a really handy feature.
Gotcha. That's great. Well, I sure appreciate you joining us today, Ryan, on TechNet Radio, now with the webcams included. And by the way, we're using Microsoft's Link 2010, which is our communication product, to actually do the recording of this. I always get asked for contact information, so first let me share my information, then, Ryan, I'll give you a chance to share out yours. My email is jweston, W-E-S-T-O-N, at Microsoft.com. I do maintain a technical blog out there at blogs.technet.com/jweston. Would love to get in contact with you. Send me an email, interact with me on my blog, and maybe you can be the next interview candidate here if you're involved in the community. We'd love to have you on the TechNet Radio here. So, Ryan, tell folks how they can get a hold of you and the North Texas SQL Server Group.
I blog on ryanjadams.com, and you can email me at ryan@ryanjadams.com. The North Texas SQL Server user, you can catch us on northtexas.sqlpass.org. Definitely go take a look at SQLSaturday.com if you're in the Dallas area. SQL Saturday 63 is coming up on April 2nd. Anywhere in the country, there are SQL Saturdays all over the country, and they are totally free events, so definitely hit SQLSaturday.com and check that out. And then for SQL Rally, you can hit SQLRally.com as well.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, and you have a good day, Ryan.
My pleasure. Thank you.